do first is we're going to review the reference book. And what I want you to do is first I want to focus on a classic essential question. What I would like to know is, so I want you to think about this question. Think. Not write. Put your pens down for a second. You can write notes in a minute. What should a good teacher do? How should a good teacher teach? And I want everybody to come up and I want everybody to write at least one or two things on the board that you think a good teacher should do to teach well. You can write all over the board. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in any one place. Great. What is it? How many of these have to do with method? How about directly with method? With a method that you learned?
Making students feel important has to do with the
Making students feel important has to do with
the community. Yes.
Community language learning.
Building rapport as well.
And building rapport. Where's building rapport?
Yes.
Yes. What else has to do with method, a particular method? Multiple mediums. And multiple intelligences, which is... I don't see that. Is that up here?
As the method.
Oh, you're talking about Gardner. What else?
The top two blue lines could be the structural approach.
What else, guys?
The understanding and the objective neurolinguistic.
Can you speak up a little bit?
The understanding and the objective neurolinguistic programming method.
Under
Neurolinguistic programming method.
anything else? Anything else you want to add to any of these that are up here? Active engagement, TPR.
There's so many acronyms in this field.
What about this? Was it any place in particular?
It seems like any teacher would have to do that.
There are some that actively do it, some methods that actively encourage this. Can you think of one? you had one?
Competency.
Maybe. Have you had one that directly dealt with that?
Making student.
What about this one? You're teaching a student, for example, you have adult learners and you're teaching a student how to use an ATM machine. That's definitely filling student needs.
Yeah.
Or something that could be something with the kindergartner. You teach a kindergartner how to get down the hallway and find the bathroom. That's another task-based lesson. So it just depends on the level, but same concept. Is there anything else you want to add to this little map we have going here before we go to step 2? Did you think of anything else you want to put up here? Are you good? Happy with it so far? I might add some things to these as we go. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to give out some index cards. And what I want you to do is 2 apiece. There you go. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about Richard's book. And I want to make the burden a little bit less on you guys for reviewing all this material. I thought it would be nice in class if we split up the book and each person took one method, wrote an explanation of the method, basically just say what it is, how does it work, and then give an example of an activity that you can do to apply it in the classroom. So I don't want to just have definitions coming at us. I want us to really think about how do we use it, because if you can't apply the method, it doesn't do any good to know it. So I'm going to read out methods and somebody can volunteer. And we might have to take 2. We don't have enough students, I don't think, to cover them all. But so audiolingual. Who wants to take audiolingual? Okay. Total physical response, TPR. Who wants to take TPR? You got it? The silent way. Who wants to take the silent way? Okay. Community language learning. Last but not least. Okay. So I want you to take a minute and remember you have take your book. You use your chapter summaries that might help you remember the main points of each method. Take a minute, review through your notes or your chapter summaries. I'll give you about, I don't want you to write me a book. Let's just remember how the method works. Okay, so just write a couple little notes, how it works. And then give an example of how it could be applied in the classroom. Okay? I'm going to set the timer. I've set it for how many minutes do you think you need? 5? Enough? Maybe? 10. Okay, we'll do 10.
Do you want us to write them on the...
Write on your note cards, yeah. I gave you 2 in case you ran out of room. How many people need another minute? Raise your hand. Okay, keep working. Okay. What I want you to do now is take a minute and turn to your partner. Anybody close to you? You 2 back there can work together. You 2 can work together. Why don't you back to the back and work down? What I want you to do when you talk to your partner is I want you to work together to come up with more activities that have to do with your 2 methods. Help each other. Think of another couple of examples. If they need their memory refreshed about the method, take a second to do that.
How specific do you want these activities?
I don't want a book, but if it's task-based, I want to be able to tell it's task-based,
Okay.
for example.
So then competency questioning. Yes, yes.
The goal is like basic universal.
Okay, if you guys haven't switched roles, if you haven't started helping your partner, switch partners. Help your partner now. Now what I'd like to do, everybody done? Did you have time? Everybody good? Okay. What I want you to do now is you can either, I would prefer you come up here, but if you are one of those people who freak out talking in front of the class, you can sit in your seat and do it. but I would prefer you come up here so everyone can hear you well. Explain very briefly in like 30 seconds or less, 1 minute or less, your method, just to remind people what it is. And then pick your favorite activity that you came up with your partner, the one that represents the method itself the best, okay? So who wants to go first? Come on.
Can we erase the board?
You can erase the board.
Alright, everyone, so I have the lexical approach, and it refers to the belief that the building blocks of language learning and communication aren't grammar, functions, notions, or some other unit of planning, but rather lexis, which are words, word chunks, word combination. Alright, so for the first activity, we have the word get. And what I'd like you to do is to come up to the board and write a preposition that forms a verb phrase with the word to get. Alright, like, and it helps you create a new meaning too, like, get up, get down, get off, get in, get out.
Like get in line.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great activity. Good
So-
example. Perfect example.
Okay.
Nice job.
Good.
Okay, who's next?
I did the competency-based method, and basically it's focused on like the outputs instead of the inputs. Another way of saying that is the whole language learning process is like a mosaic of smaller parts, and in competency-based method, you are learning specific tasks that are relevant to mostly your job. It sounds like a lot of this is for like professional development. So a good example would be like being able to read reports, read certain charts or tables, be able to like order supplies. So things that you may need to do in your day-to-day job. A good example would be maybe, depending on what job you're doing, if you have a certain report that comes in every day, being able to read this report and be able to use that information to do your job from day to day. Or another one was being able to maybe talk with a classmate and for example, like order supplies or carry on a conversation like on the phone that you need to do during the day in order to make things run in your job. A lot of it was very like target based, like if you know this, you can do your job in English.
Good. Nice job. Good examples. Who wants to go next?
So mine is community language learning, and it's where the teacher like takes on the role of the counselor, and the students really guide the lesson, and it like kind of treats language as like a social process. And it's kind of hard to have a specific activity because every class is different, and the students really just kind of lead the lesson in whatever direction they want to take it. But the main activity that most of them have in common is just that everyone like sits in a circle and maybe like introduces themselves informally so everyone gets more comfortable, and then they just see what they want to talk about.
What kind of things would they talk about? Would they talk about how to do a report?
That's probably not the first thing that they
Right.
want to
What?
talk about.
Give me a classic example. What would they talk about?
Like, how are they feeling? Or is there
There's a
anything that's
classic
making them uncomfortable that they want to talk about?
Good.
They don't understand.
Good. Great. Nice job. Good job. Okay, who wants to go next?
So I did the whole language learning, which looks at language as a whole entity, as the name implies. So it tries to really put reading and writing and talking and listening together. Each class and I activity that I thought of, just restaurants. It's the easiest thing for me because you have to read the menu and then you have to talk to the waiter or whoever's taking the order or whoever makes your food. You need to listen, how much it's going to cost, change, the restaurant's going to give all the money. And then
What do we have to write?
we don't have to
A little.
write.
Well, if you had a good waiter or
You could
waitress.
like leave a thank you note.
Or a tip.
Yeah, tip.
Yeah, you can leave a thank you note for
This
you.
restaurant
Good.
with paper ordering.
The difference is in this method, it's not necessarily immersion. The method of instruction is not necessarily immersion. It has econometric instruction. As opposed to,
And the
it does have a balance on time and curriculum. Good job. She's next.
So I have an audio-lingual method, which is primarily characterized by verbal repetitions and oral drills. And to some of the grading of written exercises, worksheets, and such. The best example that I have is the instructor introduces like a phrase, maybe like a tongue twister, and each student goes through the class and repeats it back to the instructor, or they might introduce a sentence and ask for an appropriate response from each one of the students. So the one problem with the audio lingual method is that it's kind of rigid and it breaks learning into like very distinct spheres of like reading, grading, auditory, and then oral.
Can you give me a classic example of something that would be audio lingual?
I guess the best example of audio lingual is, if I was to ask you, how are you doing? And then you would say, I'm well, or I'm fine, and then go around the classroom and repeat that.
Good, next one. Classic example.
I have a response, which is a language teaching method built around the coordination of speech and action. Example, actually I can combine both of mine. I guess it would be like introducing colors on a flashcard and then identifying objects around the classroom that are those colors, or putting the flashcard somewhere in the classroom and telling it, and having the students tell each other go walk to red or run to blue. So it would coordinate, review a bunch of concepts like actions, colors, objects.
I want to give another example because there's a couple of different things that have to do with TPR. One is where the students actually mimic the word that you're doing. So if you say nose, they have to touch their nose. Or if you say, recently I did one with adult students where we did traffic stops, police traffic stops, where they had to act out, turn off the car, roll down your window. So when I said turn off the car, they acted it out. So there's two different styles of TPR. And also, if you want to make it less teacher-based, you can also do role plays where the students give each other the action, which gives them some more communicative practice. So it's very flexible. It's a really nice method. It's fun. Good job. Thanks very much.
I did NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and essentially what the goal is to restructure the way students perceive themselves when you present a task. So we start off with an objective, and in my case, my activity was how to teach students how to speak in California slang or swag. And so I started with just reminding students of how when if you moved around, how when you look at someone talking from a different area, you're like, oh wow, they talk really weird. Just encourage students to not let themselves down, because a lot of it has to do with how they perceive themselves, which is
yes.
good relationships.
I was just going to say, community. One essential part of community style lessons is that you build relationships between the students and between the teacher and the students so that they feel comfortable and that it forms a community. And the other thing you mentioned when you were speaking non-standard English is a lot of times in a community you'll have people with different outlooks on what language should be, what English should be. So it's good when you're building community to accept everybody's idea of what English is and compare them back and forth, as opposed to judging that one English is better than another. Because all systems of communication have function as a language. So one important thing in community language instruction is that we're very inclusive of everybody in the community. And I think that's a classic failure of some teachers. They say, that's not standard English. And they try to push that out of the community instead of including it and talking about it and comparing the way people use that compared to other ways you use language. Good. Nice job. You want to go from back there or you want to wait? Okay.
And this is an approach to characterizing ways in which learners are unique in meeting their needs. And everyone has different learning abilities, so this helps you meet them where they are. And since I work with children, I chose bodily kinesthetic intelligence. We like to do role plays, we like to act out stories and with puppets and choosing specific words. And right now we are dealing with little pigs. So we have little puppets in the back book, and we pick certain words and we focus on those certain words and they have to method.
That's a great example. And I was actually in a graduate school class recently where the teacher taught graduates and students using finger puppets. So you can see it in any long classroom, kindergarten to literally in graduate school. So, and it's not just physical, it can be all different kinds of things that appeal to different kinds of learners. Or it could just be as simple as you want to mix up your class and keep it from getting boring. So you want people to move, or maybe you want people to write down, work by themselves, and sort of appeal to just variety on top of appealing to different learners. Nice job. And great example. Okay, who's left? Girls in the corner.
I had the silent way, and the main premise is that the teacher stays quiet most of the time in order to foster like discovery and communication. And so the student and teacher work together to reach education goals, and the goals are created and discovered. It uses colorful charts and rods to introduce new vocabulary and syntax. It's centered around problem solving, which promotes long-term memory. And so an activity that I came up with was using different colored rods for prepositions or phrasal verbs, so you could figure out like what words could go with what verbs, like going up or going down. You have different rods that represented those.
Nice. Great. Good summary. It's 7 o'clock. Since we've now reviewed all the methods in your book, why don't we take a little break right now, then we're going to come back and learn about our new methods. Does that sound good?